Okay, Mark had this great idea. They're very far and few between. But he says, let's have a topic today. And we're going to talk about movies that defined us growing up. Movies that we spoke to us, right? Kind of thing?
Yeah.
And what kind of movies were growing up for you?
Well, according to my notes, everything started with 2 movies for me. Grease.
Okay.
Because I was in Cubs, and my Cub Pack leader was a family friend. He babysat us all the time. And Grease, 20 times. I'm sure we watched it 20 times at least. And Police Academy. It's just a wacky comedy. It's just, wow, I'm having such a good time watching this. And that's what started everything, my enjoyment of movies.
But how did that define you?
Well...
Were you a goofball?
Here's the thing. If you know anything about my family, is that it's all just making fun of each other, digs, stupid... It's just saying stupid things. And so what defined me was the parody spoof genre.
Naked Gun, you were a big fan.
Naked Gun, Hot Shots, well, I got my list here. Monty Python, Airplane, and recently, well, the biggest one, culminating in The Princess Bride, which is, I think, the best. And so that is what made me me. If you think of all the best times I had at the movies, it was a parody movie.
The goofball comedies.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that with you. For myself, I was a very shy kid. You would never know it now. I got accidentally one year put into drama because the shop class I was trying to get into was full, and I was moving to a new school. And drama brought me out of my shell and got me into public speaking, etc. and that. But before that, I was a loner, had like very few friends, kept to myself, played in my own room, like with my own toys, that kind of stuff. So I was big into the underdog stories. So Rocky, big underdog story, Karate Kid, even movies like The Magnificent Seven, outnumbered heroic gesture. The Alamo. Everyone remembers the Alamo. 5,000 Mexican warriors against 200, Texans. Those were my stories back then.
Okay, so you were 10 years old in 1972, I guess.
Yeah. 14.
14?
Yeah.
You were 14.
Well, 74 when Rocky came out. Or 76 Rocky came out.
Yeah, so you were almost an adult when Rocky came out. And Karate Kid, you were already an adult. So we're talking about Alamo, and what was the other one you had there? The Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, those are all the old westerns.
Like before 14 years old, were there movies that you remember?
Yeah, the Alamo was before.
Okay, those other ones?
Anything that was the underdog stories, or I was big into the war stories, the little person who made their way up, the movie Waterloo, the Napoleon story. All those kind of stories. Anything that was the little guy making it big. And, all of a sudden becoming famous or standing out amongst their peers kind of thing. That's why, movies like even Flashdance was a big thing when we were growing up. Because, she made it, underdog, welder, wants to be a professional dancer, works as an exotic dancer, becomes a professional. That kind of thing. Anything that was an underdog story, that was what drew me. I really appreciated it.
So did Mean Girls speak to you?
Not so much. Because she looked like Lindsay Lohan.
That's not realistic.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, let's ignore the beautiful girl.
Or She's All That.
Even then, you can put glasses on a pig. Yes, it's going to be a pig. But you can't put glasses on Gal Gadot and say she's ugly. And that's kind of what they did in Mean Girls as well. And what was this? She's All That. No. That was just goofy stuff like that. I liked, and some of the stories were almost to the point where, well, there were true life stories like the Alamo, but there are also stories that you could feel could happen in real life. She's All That, that doesn't really happen, right?
You don't know.
Yeah, you do. That's not life.
Okay, so that's what defined us growing up. Okay, but what are the stories off the top of your head that when somebody asks you, you say, "Oh, my favorite movies are these"?
I'm still big into the historical war movies and stuff like that. So Braveheart's a big one for me. Battle of the Bulge, Alamo, The Longest Day, all these Napoleon, Waterloo, all these movies, war dramas, War and Peace. Those are what spoke to me as a kid. I used to study them all the time. I research Napoleon like night and day. All my favorite novels are Bernard Cornwell, the Richard Sharp series, like all Napoleonic era stuff. It's just
You're always talking about war stuff.
Yeah, I grew up. Well, the biggest show on TV when I was growing up as a teenager was the War Years, and every week they would have a different episode about World War II, and that was like, oh my God, television back then. Remember, we didn't have a lot of TV channels to choose from back then. So that was, what I grew up with. And 62 was not that far away from the war. So.
It wasn't?
45.
It's quite a distance.
20 years. It's not that long from a world war.
Okay.
You're still recovering.
Yeah, but you weren't around.
But we were still going through the Cold War and all that stuff. It was still around.
Okay, well, as an adult with a semi-functioning brain, the only real parody that comes off the top of my head that I really liked was, not a parody, but wacky comedy, is Dumb and Dumber. That'll always be one of my favorite movies. And then it's like...
Pet Detective.
That's not
still,
one of my top movies.
But it's still goofy.
Yeah. But I like Braveheart, 300, Lord of the Rings trilogy. Like,
those are really goofball comedies.
No, yeah, so off the top of my head, my favorite movies are not like that.
But they were war movies. It's
more
epic battle
more
movies.
the fantasy. And yeah, the Braveheart was supposed to be historical, but it itself was kind of fantasy too, because it wasn't real, true to life historical movie. So.
They took, different aspects, and they actually took parts of a different general's war, Robert the Bruce, and put it into there, even though Robert the Bruce was in the movie.
Yeah, so technically it's a fantasy.
Yeah, but there you go. Well, that's kind of what defined us growing up. Me, the Underdog stories. I was big into the historical war dramas and all that, and you were basically a goofball.
Corny.